Hello and welcome to Warren Thornton on Patreon and warrenthornton.com. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Warren Thornton on Patreon and warrenthornton.com. I am always, as always, blessed on a Tuesday to have, it is, of course, Tweedy Tuesday. I've got James Tweedy, journalist from Sputnik, along with me. Good evening, James. How are you?
Good, thanks, Warren. How are you?
I'm absolutely fine. I don't think things are going to be fine in a few days' time. We are going to make a massively bold prediction here. The ground war is going to start within the next 2 weeks. And the reason we are making this prediction, we have spoken both to our source at the Pentagon and also very, very close to the White House. We have the exact people that are taking part in this. There are 17,500 troops that have been landed in various areas in the Middle East, and there are more flights on the way. We're going to go through those flights and everything else. We're going to go through absolutely everything with you. Likely landing points. There are 4 areas that America are going to try and take, and of course they've got to decide which ones they're going to prioritize. James, does this come as a shock to you that boots on the ground is now going to happen?
Well, I'm not convinced. I think, but I think if it drags on for us, for a few more weeks or months, then yeah, I would expect that to happen.
Okay. James is not convinced, so we will try to convince him. We had a couple of things, if you remember. I don't know if you remember this or you will remember this, of course. And we've had this now confirmed. And this is why the Americans wouldn't confirm it. If you remember, just before we get into what's going to happen, you'll remember this place called Yads, which we've circled at the top there. And that is where the 2 missiles that supposedly were launched at Diego Garcia were actually supposedly launched. They were the only launches that actually took place at that time. And of course, we've got the full story on that. And of course, we turned around and said at the time what had happened with these. Now, one of these wonderful missiles that they sent dropped into the ocean just off of Banda d'Air. And of course, we've already told you about this, but we've also had confirmation from this from our source. And of course, the other one was just outside of a place called Fujairah. And of course, when we look at the map, they were going nowhere near Diego Garcia whatsoever. Let's have a little look at this. This is your map. If you remember, we showed you this before. That's where the launches were taken from the top red circle there. That's number 1 that splashed in the ocean, and number 2 that the American Navy, according to Israel and of course the Wall Street Journal, that the American Navy took out. Now, of course, everybody went, why would they be launching from Yads? It's a hole in the mountain. Well, we've got this from our source, and he's 100%, shall we say, just pushing this button and saying, look, we know about this place. And I asked him why they didn't debunk it. And he said that the Pentagon did. They're well aware of where they come out. And he has told us this. Iran's missiles, they're big missiles, are out of reach because they have constructed a 500-meter deep subway system inside a mountain near the city of Yads, the place we've just told you that the two launches happened from. The underground base, as far as they're concerned, hosts automatic rails designed to deliver warheads to the surface. It's so deep that it has massive blast corridors, as far as we know, and granite rock, which makes the facility unreachable by any bombardment, even for our GBU-57 ordnance penetrators, the largest bunker busters we have. This is why, despite our strikes, their missile capabilities have been destroyed, that it has not been destroyed. And of course, we have to try and find a way to stop it. James, confirmation from our State Department source. I mean, we had it from our heat sources anyway, that these missiles were never launched at Diego Garcia in the first place. I mean, the range of the missiles was put forward by Israel as being able to be much longer, but in truth, none of it happened. We have 3 independent sources now on heat maps that say there were no missiles that will launch that area anywhere near the time, and also there was no fire from anywhere near Diego Garcia.
Well, okay. I mean, if that information is correct, then one of them was going in the wrong direction.
So, yeah, exactly that.
There's a point. And you have to remember that ballistic missiles are basically glorified artillery shells.
They are.
You know, they fly in an arc like that. They go up and they come down like an artillery shell.
Yeah.
You see, so that's it. There is this. Okay, I don't know the physics of it. You know, they're saying, well, you know, they could have taken a missile that's designed to carry a 1.8 ton warhead, and they 1.5, 2 ton warhead, and put a half-ton warhead on it, and then that doubles the throw. You know, you half the throw weight and you double the range, or blah blah blah. I don't know. They've never really had before this. I mean, talking like last year during the 12-day war, everyone was saying, well, they haven't got any missiles that can reach any further than Israel.
Yeah,
that's about the limit of their range. So it's a long way. And then they said, well, you know, just extrapolating from that, they could hit London or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Hit London with what? You know, a 1,000-pound, 1,000-pound bomb. It might fall in the Thames or something. You know, it's and then what? Get, you know, bring all kinds of crap down on their heads. So it's like, yeah. I mean, there's all of that.
There's also the other thing, James, that Akrotiri Air Base is a third of the distance away. They can just quite as easily hit that better one.
Okay, if Akrotiri was attacked, it was attacked with kind of, you know, Shaheed Jaran type drones, you know, or some sort of little propeller powered drone that was launched from Lebanon, maybe something like that. It wasn't attacked directly from Iran. And then, yeah, I mean, the US has got plenty of targets in the region, and Israel is in range, so they can just, if they really want to say, you know, make a statement, they'll just hit Israel. You know what I mean?
Yes.
They can't, as far as they're concerned, they can't fire enough missiles at Israel, can they? Right? So, and then, so there's one thing, right? Also, there was a fire at an oil refinery in Texas today. I think it was.
There was.
And, you know, I mean, that wasn't hit by a missile fired from Iran, definitely.
No.
And if it was, if the Iranians were behind that, it's because an Iranian in Texas went there, snuck in there in the night, and you know, opened
and
the
blew
tap
it up. Yeah.
Set a fire or something, you know. And they could do that, possibly.
They could.
Right? If they want to hit the USA, they could just do that, can't they?
Why would they do that, though, James, when they can go to London and blow up 4 ambulances that are empty?
Yeah, I know. And they're insured and everything.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, basically that, again, that was almost certainly some locals who are angry about this, and then, you know, unwisely did all this crap.
Yes.
You know, like went and you know, like, and of course that it plays into the hands of the government, you know, and the people who want war. So
Is it
you know,
locals or is it a bit more sinister? Let's have a look at this, James, and then you can give your interpretation or your thoughts on this.
mm,
This group never existed until March the 9th, James. This suddenly this Iranian offshoot terror group.
yeah,
Not a murmur from our politicians about the 160 children that died, but every single politician worth his salt, including Farage, has now come out and said that, of course, this is a heinous crime and totally anti-Semitic and the same old nonsense. I
yeah,
mean,
but they will, won't they? That's the thing, and you know, you know, whoever did it knew that. I mean, okay, someone might want to say, oh, you know, it was actually people in the Jewish community, or it was you know, Israeli agents or someone who came and did this to justify, you know, to whip up sympathy for Israel.
yeah,
Maybe it is, but maybe, you know, it's equally likely that it's, you know, there's a lot of young people in Britain who are angry about the Gaza war and
yes,
are angry about this war on Iran now, who might do something like that. And so it does, you know, it doesn't really matter. The end effect is the same.
yeah.
You see.
Okay. Fair enough. Let's get into our main story then, which is the ground troops. Now, James is not convinced. Let's see if we can convince him. Very, very simply, we are saying that these ground troops are on the way, and this is going to be, shall we say, quite a bad thing. It's not going to be good, I don't think. And of course, we are much, much closer now to there being a terrible, should we say, a really awful situation of ground troops, which nobody wants to see, but we're going to get it. So let's go through. We're going to give you a list of everybody that is on the way there. So what we've had, we'll have the flights first of all. Now, we've had 12 flights from Hunter Army Airfield from Fort Stewart. We've had 8 flights that have landed that we're not quite sure where they came from. But we've had 7 flights from JB Lewis McCord. We've had 6 from Pope Army Airfield in Fort Bragg, 4 from the Campbell Army Airfield. This is delivering troops. 4 from Grey Army Airfield. 4 from the Naval Air Station Oceana in Virginia. 1 from MacDill Air Force Base in Florida. 1 from JB Maguire. Those destinations have been 17 of those flights have gone to Ovida Air Base in Israel. 13 to King Faisal Air Base in Jordan, and 4 to King Hussein International Airport in Jordan. So who has gone? The 1st Battalion of the 75th Ranger Regiment, not an aviation unit itself, but the Rangers are based at Hunter and work closely with the 160th SOAR. Now, the 3rd Battalion, 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, that is the SOAR, Airborne, the legendary so-called Night Stalkers, flying highly modified Mi-60 Black Hawks and Mi-47 Chinooks on classified special operations worldwide. The 15th Air Support Operations Squadron, the Air Force unit embedded with the Army Ground Forces for close coordinated air support. The 2nd Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment, not a flying unit, but the Rangers are at JBLM, are closely integrated with 160th in rapid raid and direct action mission sets. The 1st Special Forces Group, the primary Army Special Forces Group for the Pacific Theatre, and of course the support of the 22nd Special Tactical Squadron, the Air Force Special Operation Combat Controllers and Para Rescuemen, supporting the full joint enterprise. It's an amalgamation of the rest of those. The 4th Battalion is also listed as a major unit. The 2nd Battalion, 75th Ranger Unit, not a flying unit, but the Rangers at JBLM, once again, are closely integrated. The 1st Special Forces Group, the 22nd Special Tactics Squadron. Now, Campbell Army Airfield and represent arguably the most aviation dense installation in the entire US Army. That has been emptied. And as I say, what is also going with that is the 1st Battalion, 160th. And of course, they've got Mi-6, A-86 Little Bird light assault and attack helicopters. The 1st Battalion is the primary battalion support for the Joint Special Operations Command. We've got the 2nd Battalion of the SOAR also that are going. They're to do with featuring with air refueling capability teams, radar, advanced navigation systems, and extreme environmental modifications. In other words, Arctic or desert. The 82nd Airborne Division, the entire division's rapid deployment concept depends on the Air Force Strategic Airlift, C-17s and C-130s. They've got the 1st Special Forces Command, the 75th Ranger Regiment, which is moving. They were at Fort Benning. They're now there. The 3rd Special Forces Group, the Africa Focus Forces Group, based at Fort Bragg. Delta Force, the Army's Tier 1 Direct Action Unit, are also there. The USA SOAC, the US Army Special Operations Aviation Command, has also moved all its sources there. And Apollo Suchek is also there as well. The people from there are already there. And the Naval Special Warfare Development Group, which is DevGru and of course SEAL Team 6, and understanding the distinction between these is very, very important. There are at least 35 C-17 missions at these bases, indicating major special operations in the works. The activity actually started on March the 12th, one day before the 31st MEU was deployed, obviously across the water. Now, this is just with data that there are some of these data you're enabled to get. Now, from our Pentagon source, we have that 17,500 soldiers are traveling. If these forces are inserted onto Iranian territory, it'll only be a matter of time before Iran starts hitting them with drones and missiles. After 25 days of war, the US had suffered quite a few casualties, considering, but relatively small considering the number of missiles and drones that have been launched. This kind of operation carries, of course, enormous risk for the operators and are deployed on the ground. It may well be, and I fear this is just me personally, a grossly underestimated resolve and the determination of the Iranians to look after their home. Let's discuss, first of all, the amount of people that are going over there, James. They're not going over there for a holiday, are they?
Well, no. With you know what you described there is all the same people who were, well, not the same actual men, but the same units that were in Mogadishu back in 1993, right? For whatever reason. And then you've got the Delta Force, and that's really weird because what, you know, is there a hostage situation?
There
You know,
is,
the Delta
well,
Force, by the way, went into, but
yeah,
these are also all the same units that went into Iran back in 1980 and got, you know,
yes,
and
it
it was
didn't
a
do very
disaster,
well.
right? Right. Okay. So, um, let's see. I'm just measuring some distance here. 20 miles. Okay. So, okay. I mean, yeah. All right. So then they're going to move all these guys. They've got all these helicopters that they're probably got to, like, you know, pack up uh, into ships, into aircraft, into transport aircraft, and then unpack and put back together at the other end. You know, put the rotor blades back on them and things like that. And then they're going to get this. They're shipping them all to Jordan. So then I'm guessing
Jordan
they're
and
going
Israel, yeah,
overland through Saudi Arabia to the Persian Gulf or to Kuwait. You know, so like Saudi Arabia or Kuwait, the coast there. You know, and then if you think Karg Island is one of the places, okay. So then, and then you've got to organize. Okay, then you've got to fly them. Let's try. I'm doing some. I'm measuring some distances here.
yeah.
On the maps, right?
So
So
there's
measure
Israel,
distance. It's like
There's Israel and Jordan, and
120 miles, at least 120 miles. Probably more like 140, something like that. 150.
yeah.
You know,
Just to let
130,
people,
140. They've got to fly across the Persian Gulf, right? And then
yeah,
get to this place, Karg Island. And Karg Island is 20 miles off the coast.
yeah.
And it's a good way, but you know, the Iranians might just have artillery that can shell the island from the mainland. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well,
And
we've gone with three possibles, James, which is an amphibious landing, which means pretty much they would have to sail up the Strait of Hormuz there, which means they're going to come under bombardment. So it's highly
yeah,
likely that
that doesn't make any sense because why have you
no,
put them in Jordan? You know, like why are
uh,
they not sailing there on a ship? And
well,
why is it not the US Marines? You know, and just the US
shall we go
Marines and
through
not
the
anyone else?
options then, and then you can decide which one you think they're going to go for. So we've been told that there are four possible targets that they have. One being Chabahar, which I think is an absolutely crazy target because it is a port city completely surrounded on all sides by mountains. And if you wanted to create a bullseye, that would be the perfect place to drop people in. They could literally, the Iranians could just sit behind the mountains and just pepper it all day long. The other one that we went through last night, and this one does seem very, to me, seems crazy, but it's Kesham Island, which is massive. It has got 150,000 people on it. It has, of course, its own runway and airport, as you can see there. It's actually called very quaintly Kesham International Airport. There's nothing international about it at all. But that is once again right on the Strait of Hormuz. So that is that one taken into account. And then, of course, we have the other two thoughts that they want to, or the other two that are being talked about. Karg Island, which is sort of like sitting duck bullseye area. And we said that really the only way you could do it is if you send in an airborne division. And the other reason that there might be in Jordan and should we say there, is the fact that they're then going to go through Iraq. And of course, the main place that much of the talk has been about that they'd like to capture is this place, Tabriz. They wanted to go in, or they were hoping to go in from this place here, Suleimania, and to make this line right the way across from literally Banna through Buchan and to literally stop at Ardabil there. So the idea was to cut that entire, shall we say, corridor off so that their mercenary troops which they've got about 3,000 in the Zangezur corridor there, could then pour into Tabriz while they cut from Suleimania to Ardabil, a straight line there, and try and do Syria. So, James, your thoughts on all of those four places that have been mentioned as possible?
The problem with the mountainous thing is that the whole country is mountainous, really.
It is, yeah.
And then, we've already been through this idea of getting the Kurdish Peshmerga militia in, in Erbil to invade, and they weren't interested, even though they were getting Israel was bombing them. Exactly. So Iran was bombing them, right? Yeah. Iran was hitting them with missiles,
and they were hitting America.
Yeah, but they've done this before as well, because they all know what the Kurdish separatists are and who they work for, right? And then, so yeah, you're going to march. Okay, so then you need a big army, and you're fighting in the mountains, and it's a nightmare. It's like Afghanistan all over again, right? And then Shabahar. Okay, so that's where there's this this whole kind of economic cooperation business going on with Pakistan. And I don't know if Pakistan would say anything about it, but it's also, where is it? It's nowhere near where the missiles are being launched from. It's on the other side of it's like hundreds of miles from the capital.
It is, there we are.
So, okay, we captured your port. And they'll be like, and it doesn't help you, like, open up the Straits of Hormuz, right?
Yes, I personally think it's an absolutely brainless idea. I don't think they go for it.
Isn't it? So then you've got these islands in the Straits of Hormuz. You've got Hormuz Island itself, right? And there's another little one south of there. Hormuz Island is I've seen photos of it. It's an amazing looking place. Rainbow colored valleys, red rocks everywhere and rainbow colored valleys, and tourist destination, right? Keshem, I mean, if an airport has a customs and immigration desk, then it's international. That's why it's international. But okay. So then, how do you get there again? How do you get there without running the gauntlet of the Strait of Hormuz?
I'd imagine if they're going to try and attempt it, they're going to launch from Dubai, I would have thought.
Well, yeah, but then and then it's also again close to the mainland.
Yeah,
and so you come under attack. So, but what I think is the intention is to cause economic damage to Iran. And so, how do you do? Well, they could just fire a load of cruise missiles at Karg Island and destroy all the oil terminals.
Yeah,
right.
What you have
storage tanks and the oil term and the pipes out to the jetties and all that sort of thing. Just destroy it and cut the main pipeline to the mainland and everything, and set the whole place on fire. And then the Iranian. How does Iran export oil after that? That's their main terminal, you see.
Well, one of five, yeah. But I mean, everybody's saying it's massive and it's their main terminal. And everybody was saying like it's 90%, but it's actually one of five. They've actually got a few other terminals that are just as big.
Okay, but they could also be hit. You see, that's the thing. Yeah. So they could do that without putting any troops there. I mean, another thing is Donald Trump's kind of modus operandi is always to make a big show of escalating and then back down, to try and threaten people. He bullies people, he bullies other countries, right? As a president.
He does, yeah.
He probably did that in business. But he bullies them, ships sailing around your country, blah, blah, or along your coast or whatever, aeroplanes everywhere, bombers everywhere, and then like fires a few missiles at you and then just goes away or something, all these sort of things. So and it's a kind of, there's a strategy there that that it makes you unpredictable. and
Yeah.
so on. But they're already well deep into the war. So, I think the Iranians have considered the possibility that the US may just destroy Karg Island, right? Or the
Yeah.
installations on Karg Island, right? There's that. But that's, if there's a strategy here, then on the US side, then it does seem to be to destroy the Iranian economy.
Yes.
Because they haven't destroyed their ballistic missile launchers and
No.
the silos where they're kept, or the bunkers. They haven't stopped them launching those things. They haven't stopped them launching the drones.
Yeah.
But but they've done a lot of economic damage, and it's painful for Iran. By the way, Iran has an interest in stopping all this, and then closing. It's also, you can't assume that the USA didn't realize Iran would be able to close the Straits of Hormuz.
It's not that I think it's not that they didn't know that they could close the straits. It's that they didn't think they would.
No, they wanted it to happen. They knew it would happen, and obviously they went ahead, and that's what they wanted. And the effect of that is that with the straits closed, it's just as bad for Iran. Because how does Iran enforce closing the straits? It's sinking oil tankers that try and get through. It's attacking them, right?
Yeah.
So that line has been crossed, and the US can sink any Iranian oil tanker coming out into into the Indian Ocean, into the Arabian Sea there, right? So they can do that. Or seize those tankers and steal the oil like they did with Venezuelan tankers. They'll do that, right? There's no question of that. And where is that oil heading? Well, most of it was heading to China, so they're hurting China, and that's one of their aims to wreck the Chinese economy. So they calculated that would happen. They either accepted it or they decided it was, in fact, it was beneficial. It was something they wanted. It was a bonus. Yeah, we'll shut. Iran will close the straits. We haven't done it. Iran did it. That's their fault. We can blame them for it. And China isn't getting any oil.
Wasn't us. It was them. James, I do have a question to ask you because I am baffled at this. People sort of turning around and going, "Oh, I didn't know the Saudis were like that, and they were in bed with Israel." I tried to point out to quite a few people that up until recently, the Saudis were massively in bed with all sorts of terrorist organisations. And of course, we've got Mohammed bin Salman now turning around and going, "Oh, we're likely to go and throw our lot in with America." And of course, we don't want to do this. We're a very peaceful, loving nation. We never do anything wrong, Gov. Honest. Your thoughts?
Well, has he said that publicly?
Yeah.
Or is this just what's being reported? Well, this is the thing, you see. So there's a lot of reports in US newspapers that Mohammed bin Salman is telling the US to finish the job and overthrow the regime. Well, why would he say that? I mean, is he obviously it's not happening. So it would be foolish at this point for him to say that. Right? So and the war is hurting them because they can't sell their oil either. So there are different things. I mean, yeah, he might be, doing the dirty on Iran after, his country's government, went into talks that were brokered by China, and they improved their relations with Iran and everything. They made lots of, agreements and so forth. And so he might be stabbing them in the back. because they don't particularly like the Iranians anyway.
What they do.
So,
yeah.
but things were probably better for Saudi Arabia a month ago before all this started, honestly.
Okay.
And they're feeling the pain of it, and they can probably see just better than anyone that there isn't really an end in sight. They probably understand Iran better than most people do. You see, so
you might be right there. Well, let's get into a little bit of this then, and see what you think of this. America have now withdrawn absolutely every one of their troops and every one of their personnel from Al-Assad Air Base and the Victory Base complex, given that they've been bombed, relentlessly since the start of this conflict. They're now they've retreated back to Jordan. Is that a victory for the Iraqis who've been dropping drones on them pretty much every night?
Could be. I mean, Donald Trump, the first time he was president, signed a deal with Iraq for the withdrawal of all the troops.
He did,
and it's still being implemented.
Yeah,
it must have a very extended timeline or something, but it's still being implemented. But they were pulling out of those places already. But okay, this probably sped it up. But also, what that means is that those places wouldn't be part of the planning for any war with Iran. They wouldn't say, "Well, we're going to put lots more forces in there now," because we're drawing down from there. So we're drawing down. We're pulling out. Drawing down is just a jargon. Anyway, so there you go. But might be different in the Kurdistan. What do they call it? The Kurdistan Autonomous Region, up by where Erbil is, right? They might be different there. So, yeah, I mean, but certainly it looks like it. I mean, also, there is a general situation where the US government is telling US citizens in the Middle East to get out, basically. But is that any skin off the US's nose? I don't think so. They've created this chaos. It's not. It's a sort of drop in the ocean of the overall cost of the.
Not a loss of face, as you see it.
They're trying to create chaos. They're destabilizing the whole region. They're destroying a large part of the economy there. So I would assume that they intended to do that. I don't really believe in unintended consequences. And so, it's like Iraq. I mean, the Iraq war generally and the Afghan war generally, and even the war in Libya and Syria, there was a lot of loss of face for the US there as well.
Yeah.
In theory. But they got what they wanted. I mean, Libya was destroyed.
Yeah.
Libya is now 2 or 3 different states.
It is.
That with no, all competing with each other, and it's completely dependent on the West now.
Yeah,
absolutely. Give me a minute.
No problem at all. So this is some of the footage that we've got of literally missiles being hit. And then, of course, this is the American missile base that they tried to hit there. And we've got a couple other for you that we're going to show you. Tel Aviv, let's have a little look at how Tel Aviv is looking today. Of course, they've been dropping bombs.
عايز يتكلم שלא يتפוצצوا מכוניות.
في حدا بالسيارات؟ يا شو ازدراج الطريق؟
ايه ماز שלא יתפוצצו פה כל המכוניות עכשיו.
The nonsense they're talking about Israel not being should we say, struck anymore. They're running out left, right, and centre. And of course, the nonsense as well that others aren't joining in. This is from Qatar, by the way. Or being American missiles, I should say, being fired from inside Qatar. So therefore, it's probably not.
Hello.
Unreasonable that Iran are bombing Qatar, as we can see. So they're quite clearly launching these things. And of course, Qatar and others, push the button instead of sitting back. These Gulf states are going to take, because they're taking a bit of a bashing, they might just join in. James, these Gulf states really, they were always against Iran. So I can't see how this makes any huge difference.
Qatar was, has always been kind of, halfway between the other Gulf states and Iran, because it has shared economic interests with Iran. It has the South Pars oil field, that is in the news, is split between the two countries, and so they have, they have a shared interest in not having everything blown up there. You know what I mean? It's an undersea gas field, and so. Yeah, I think there's that. The other thing is that their armed forces, in some ways, are impressive. Some of that is irrelevant. I mean, having hundreds of tanks is no good, because they can't.
It's a great idea. That works so well in Ukraine.
No, well, they can't sail across the sea. They can't get to Iran, right? Their army can't get to Iran. So they've got an air force, they've got air forces. They've got some modern aircraft that they bought from the USA or Britain or France, and they're high tech and all that. But again, what exactly are you? What's new? What's new? The USA is already bombing Iran to Kingdom Come. So what use are a few more jet fighters bombing, the Iranian coastline or something? It doesn't make any sense like that.
No,
they're not going to.
Let's ask you that question.
Change the tide.
Iran, Trump or Iran are lying. They say that they are just going to carry on the war in Iran, and people will say, well, they would say that, wouldn't they? And Trump said that they're calling him, begging for a deal, but he would say that as well, wouldn't he? Who's lying for you, James?
Okay. It makes a lot of sense for both sides to be talking, because the war is economically and in humanitarian terms very painful for Iran, and they are taking military losses too.
Yep.
So they may say, well, we're enduring, we're fighting back. That's great, from their point of view. But how long can they go on? And what's the cost? Is it really worth the economic cost? And if you're winning, then you quit while you're ahead, don't you? You bring an end to it. Why would you fight to the bitter end if you're winning? You know what I mean? So, and that goes for both sides, by the way.
Why does that not then apply to Russia? They're winning.
What do you mean? That Russia is not fighting to the bitter end. Russia is having peace talks with Ukraine.
Yeah, but I mean, you just said if you're winning, makes sense to have talks.
To finish it, yes. And Russia is having talks to finish it. You see, so that's what's going on.
So who's in the box seat then, James? Who's in the box seat?
In the which? Sorry?
Who's in the box seat? Who's got the upper hand in the talks?
I think the talks haven't properly started, but there is probably something going on. right? There is probably contact. It's probably going on via Russia or China.
It
or
is
something.
going on through Russia, yeah.
Yeah, so there's all that. So it will be happening. You know, the Iranian denial that they're even talking to the USA is not really credible. You know, Mohammed Morandi is going on all the news programs and saying, "No, we'll never negotiate with them. We're going to destroy them and all this." No, you know, okay.
But aren't they right?
there
Aren't
will
they
be-
right, though, James? Aren't they right? Because at the end of the day, you and I have discussed this before. We're just going to be in the same situation in a year or 2 years' time.
Possibly. I mean, I think they could never really accept a guarantee, you know, trust a guarantee from the US that they won't do it again. The only real guarantee is that they make it painful enough, but it has been painful. You know, there is some pain for the US in this. You know, they probably didn't think, you know, they were probably hoping against hope that none of their service people would get killed or injured, right?
Yeah.
And you know, quite a few have been, right? And
Yeah.
it's likely to get worse, isn't it, if they start if they
yeah.
try and invade some part of Iran. So, and they don't really, I don't think they really want to get into that. You know, what is the purpose of it? Again, the purpose of it is to cause economic damage, but you don't need troops on the ground to do that. So, there is probably some kind of negotiation going on. I think they probably, you know, well, anyway.
Let's hear from Louis Bastos and then we'll go into what both sides have said. Louis Bastos.
Good evening, James.
Good
evening. How can people be negotiating with the Americans knowing, and the Israelis knowing that in the middle of negotiation they're getting bombed? The same happens in Ukraine. While they want to negotiate, Zelensky bombs Russia. And these guys, they were going to negotiation table and they bombed Iran first. Iran didn't bomb anybody first. America bombed and Israel bombed while they were supposed to be negotiating. I do not trust anything America says. And Iran has got Russia, China, and North Korea behind them.
Yeah.
I don't trust any negotiations with America, whether it's in Ukraine, whether it's with NATO, whether it's with Israel. They are savages, those Israelis. My opinion.
Okay. James, the diplomatic situation may be different, but Louis got a point, hasn't he? Last two times the Iranians have turned up, the Americans tried to kill them and been very successful in one of them.
Okay. So, you know, they may, I suppose they know, and they were aware this time that when they went into the talks with the US, that the US was going to double cross them. I mean, you may say they've been naive in the past or whatever. I don't know.
Is that why they held them in Geneva, so that they wouldn't kill them this time?
Did they kill the negotiating team last time? I don't know if they did.
Yeah, they did. There was quite a few that have gone to Qatar ready to, and they hit it, didn't they? And they killed a few of them.
That was Hamas Politburo meeting in Qatar, and then Israel bombed it, and the US had sent them a ceasefire proposal, so they went to meet, and then Israel bombed the meeting place. So they didn't kill all of them, or probably most of them even. But okay, look, Iran probably wants it to come to an end, and the US may well want it to come to an end too. If the US is in bad faith about that, you'll know it because it won't end. You know, Iran is going to say, well, we're going to, you know, we want the US to take all its, you know, to evacuate all its bases in the region, right? Leave all the bases in the region. Okay, well, they might do one or two or something that they were going to leave anyway, but I don't know about if they're really going to accept that. They want reparations. Even if the US agrees, there have been times in the
They
past
won't
where
pay.
the US agreed to pay reparations to countries like Vietnam,
Yeah, they won't pay.
but they didn't,
They never
right?
have.
So even if they agree, they'll renege on it.
Of course.
When the US signed up to the nuclear deal in 2015, whenever it was 2016, it immediately reneged on the deal and put more sanctions on Iran on the pretext of its ballistic missile weapon program, right?
Yeah.
So they will always do that, right? But what they want is a ceasefire. Probably both sides want a ceasefire.
You think?
You know? Yes. I mean, Iran's almost certainly
in what way does it help Iran
No,
having us?
no,
Let's
no.
let Louis Bastos in. Louis Bastos.
Okay.
Louis.
Israel doesn't want a ceasefire, and America is in Israel's pockets. There's no way that Israel wants a ceasefire. Israel wants to flatten Iran. Israel is creating the greater Israel. If you remember, part of Turkey, part of Egypt, part of Jordan, part of Saudi Arabia, part of Iran, part of Iraq. Israel will not want a ceasefire. The only way to try and negotiate with Iran is if the Americans fly to Tehran. In that way, they will not be attacked by the Israelis. Israel doesn't matter what America wants. Israel will not go. Israel will do what they want. My opinion.
Okay. Is Louis Bastos right? Is Israel the fly in the ointment here, James?
Well, I said, a couple of weeks ago on this podcast that it would essentially depend on who runs out of missiles first. By which I mean, if Israel runs out of anti-ballistic missiles to shoot down the Iranian ballistic missiles,
That's certainly happening.
right?
Yeah,
Well, okay, maybe.
definitely.
Then it will immediately want it to stop, because then Iran will be able to hit, it'll just be able to drop large warheads right in the middle of Tel Aviv or something like that, or it will hit their nuclear reactors, their nuclear power stations and their nuclear research sites and things like that, or just hit their airfields, and their naval bases. So they don't want all that to happen. So that's a point where they'll stop, right? And especially if they start taking serious casualties. So that's one thing. The US may be calculating that now they've got control of Venezuela's oil reserve, the Venezuelan oil business. They're controlling the oil exports and skimming off a part of the profit. That they want oil prices to be high, and they want there to be a shortage and high prices because they're going to make more money like that,
Yep.
And so they don't care that the Straits of Hormuz are closed, but for Iran, it's a problem because that's their economy. If it goes on too much longer, then it could bankrupt the Iranian oil industry and then the Iranian state. You see, so they don't want that. China doesn't want that because China's buying a lot of that oil, and it's not coming out of the Persian Gulf anymore because of the war. So they want that to stop, right? Donald Trump doesn't care if petrol prices in the US double, because he's not trying to get elected again, right? He's on his way out. Whoever succeeds him will have to deal with these problems. But those people, and they'll say whatever they want, but those people were also, they knew about the plans for decades to try and overthrow the Iranian state and destroy Iran as an economic power and all this sort of thing. They knew about it and they supported it. They went along with it. They just, they might have used different tactics. And then there's a question about why is it happening now, and has Trump made a terrible mistake? Well, again, it's happening now because maybe Iran was getting too powerful, so they thought they had to, this was the direct war was like the the last resort, but they didn't have anything else, you know.
Yeah.
And
Fair
if
enough.
Joe
Well,
Biden had been prime president, or Kamala Harris, who says she's
certainly
against
haven't got any diplomats, that's for sure. Sean Murphy.
Well, Warren, the apparently Hezbollah have been forcing Israel to move some of their defensive missiles from the south of Israel to the north
Yeah.
because they've been hitting them really, really hard.
Yeah.
That
Well,
leaves the south of Israel, middle to south of Israel, extremely vulnerable to Iranian missile strikes and drone strikes, as is
Yeah.
Tel Aviv. We see that there's practically no defensive fire coming up from Tel Aviv. We see
Yeah.
there's practically no defensive fire coming up from Tel Aviv towards any Iranian drone and missile strikes because they've run out. They've run out
Yeah.
of defensive missiles and ground to air missiles.
Well, they're borrowing them from elsewhere. I don't know if you remember. Good point. I don't know if you remember, but many, many moons ago, I think maybe over almost 2 years ago now, we said that they were going to go into South Lebanon anyway. They were going to try and create this buffer zone. We said exactly where they go up to. They go up to a place called Tyre. They'd start in these areas here, and then they work their way in, which is exactly what they've done. The playbook that we literally talked about 2 years ago, James, of going up into there and where they're looking to put that border across the river, is something that we said over 2 years ago. They're not going to stop, are they? Is it? How do you get Israel to stop grabbing territory, James?
Well, okay. I mean, they invaded southern Lebanon in the early 80s, you know, and they occupied it for, I don't know, almost 20 years, but they were kicked out, you know, by Hezbollah. So, you know, that's the answer, that Hezbollah defeated them militarily.
The only way.
So, you know, and you know, the Israelis, I think, in that war they lost a few hundred soldiers killed, but to them that's not politically. It's politically difficult, you know, in Israel to take a lot of military casualties. Actually, that's a problem. That's one of their weaknesses. You know, they have a very well equipped army, lots of air support, everything. You know, so they don't take a lot of casualties necessarily, right? But you know, you just have to chip away at them, and people will say, "Oh, well, there's, you know, we lost too many. We better get out."
Yes.
You know, we're going to elect a new government, and who'll finish this thing. You see, so that's it. You know, they've tried it before. They're going to try it again. The Lebanese army, as usual, is not going to try and defend the country, but Hezbollah will, and that makes Hezbollah stronger ultimately because it makes it more politically popular.
I mean, we're hearing reports, and we'll get into that in a little while, that they've hit Dimona again. But let's have a look at the Straits of Hormuz here. So they're the only ships that are actually being allowed to go around are the ones that are going exactly where the Iranians tell them to go. So give us your assessment, James, on what you think is going to happen with the Straits of Hormuz. Is it going to be open anytime soon? Are the Americans going to try and take one of the islands there, or are they going to negotiate a way through?
Okay, I mean, Iran is not going to stop blockading the strait until there's a ceasefire, obviously. If the USA tries to invade some part of Iran, like Kharg Island or whatever, then that means that they, you know, I mean, they might be trying to escalate to de-escalate, but it's probably just going to lock them into something long term. So they're going the other way. They're going to try and destroy the Iranian economy, and then the blockade actually helps that. So yeah, that's what I think. I think Iran is. You hear conflicting reports about what's going through the strait and what isn't, but Iran is saying that ships that are going to friendly nations, they can go. You know, they're not going to stop them.
Well,
But
both Wang Yi and Peskov have had discussions with Arachi.
What's going on? Hello?
The Turks, hear me? Can you hear me?
Yep.
You're dropping out occasionally, Warren.
Am I dropping out? I do
Yeah,
apologise.
just now and again.
Just so I'll give you a quick heads up here. The thing that we've got here, as you go up the map, you see these satellite states. Is Turkey next?
You know, there's X, you know, Twitter is full of these Turkish journalist commentator types saying about how, you know, how great Iran is and how, you know, how Israel and the USA have been defeated and blah, blah, blah. And I don't trust them. I don't believe a word of it from them, you know, because Turkey is a member of NATO.
Yeah.
And although it sometimes, you know, it definitely plays NATO off against other countries.
It does.
But when it comes to the crunch, it always sides with NATO, you know, and the USA. So, whatever games they play, they'll do that. And then, again, how does Israel get to Turkey, by the way? I mean, you know, send their navy out, okay. Again, another big country.
Oh no, I'm not talking about Israel doing that. I'm talking about America taking control of it politically.
The Republican Party, the Turkish Republican Party, could win an election at any time. Really, it depends on whether the Erdogan's party, the AKP, you know, manages to, you know, how well it does and so forth. There was an attempt at a coup about 10 years ago, you know, and then the only country that warned Erdogan was Russia, you know, and the others, and then the US and the EU countries were all like, oh, it's terrible that there's a coup, but like we urge both sides to show restraint and blah blah blah, and then, you know, we hope the new regime will you know, not abuse people's human rights or some nonsense like that. The usual sort of stuff they say when they support the coup, really, you know.
Yeah.
But actually, Erdogan survived and took back power. So, I mean, there's all of that. But Erdogan does do what the US wants ultimately. You know, if Turkey was worried about being hit by Iranian missiles, they would tell the US to get out of that airbase at Incirlik, where they've got all these nuclear weapons, by the way, you know.
Yeah.
3-4 nuclear bombs. I don't know what use they are, but they would tell them to get out, wouldn't they? And they'd say, "No, sorry, no, you know, we're not going to allow you to. You shouldn't be putting your nukes on other countries' territory anyway. That's against the Non-Proliferation Treaty. You should, just want you to get out now, you know." So, but they don't do
that. Let's get into this then. Oh, not that bit. We'll do that in a minute. Just going to show that's a piece we're going to do on how much America just don't care what they see. Let's have a look at this. So Iran's missiles are frequently getting through the air defense system, and they're having to put up a lot of these missiles to try and take the Iran missiles down. The amount that they're putting up in the air is growing each time from Iran, and therefore they're having to use more. They're going to run out, aren't they, eventually?
Well, it was one of the claims from the US about a week or two ago that, you know, the number of launches from Iran had gone down, and they had, you know, but now they're going back up.
Yeah.
So Iran was keeping a lot in reserve and just launching a few missiles at a time. Now they're launching more. And yeah, that might be an indicator that they're, you know, that the Israeli anti-ballistic missiles are being, you know, they're running out of them. Basically, that might be. They can't have a. There's only ever going to be a finite number. The US last year, when it, you know, the 12-day war last year, the US, and you know, in the previous round of missile launches, the US sent land-based THAAD anti-ballistic missiles, and they had the ships, the destroyers carrying the standard SM-6 anti-ballistic missile, and that was a problem for the US. They shot off a lot of their ammunition, and they probably, you know, they're probably being produced at a fairly low rate anyway.
They are.
Not a very high, not a high enough rate to sustain all this sort of thing. It's a kind of war that you don't know. Anti-ballistic missile systems. The idea is that you've got nuclear weapons. There's another country with nuclear weapons that might attack you. So you're expecting one big salvo of them, and you're going to shoot down ones heading for maybe just for your capital. Maybe you're just going to defend your capital, or a few, maybe 2 or 3, like very important strategic sites, like your command and control bunker. You know, like the one at Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado, right? The one that's in War Games, the film. You know. And you know, they right. But then the idea of like a country launching hundreds and hundreds of them at you for over a period of weeks and months, and they've got conventional warheads in them. You know, it's not like, you know, a war that's over in an hour, like you imagine World War III would be. It's, you know, it's this constant bombardment. And so, you know, how many missiles? You haven't stockpiled enough for that. You know, they've basically got enough to fill the launchers of the Arrow system and maybe 1 or 2 reloads for them. So they are going to run out.
Yeah.
You know? There you go.
I think you're absolutely right, especially as they were popping off 1 million missiles early. This bit here, I've always said that Lavrov is the most dangerous guy that I think out there. They're having a little chat now about whether they think Lavrov, I've always said that Rubio is the most dangerous man out there. And of course, JD Vance and Rubio, they're starting to put Rubio's case here. Have a look at this. So Daily Mail is putting them forward for the 2028 election. That literally Rubio is the man who gets things done. I mean, they've started grifting early for this guy, haven't they? Rubio for me is even more dangerous than Trump.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say he's like a serious contender, you know, and he's going to take the blame for a lot of things that have gone on.
What, you think Rubio will not be a serious contender?
I never think he's a terribly serious person. He's like, you know, he's somebody what does he represent? He represents a community of people in Florida who whose parents or grandparents came from Cuba, left Cuba after the revolution, and don't like their home country, and they want, you know, they want the US to go in there and overthrow the government, and like they all dream of running the country that, again, that they've never been to or something, you know. And it's you know, it's kind of ghetto politics, you know. It's like having, you know, a black congressman to represent, you know, the Bronx or Harlem or something, right?
Okay,
You know, that's the you know, all the black, and another one for Compton in Los Angeles and all that sort of thing. You know, that's all they're there for, right? And then but then he's also going to take, like I say, he's going to take the stick for a lot of things that go on, and he might say, well, you know, he may try and take credit for Venezuela, but what have they gained?
I've got to say,
Venezuela.
I have to say on this point, I disagree. I think he's the anointed one. I think he's the military-industrial complex and the Israel absolute shoo-in. And I think who do you think would beat? Who do you think is going to beat Rubio?
I think Vance. You know what the story I've heard is Vance doesn't want to do it because he thinks a Democrat will win. So wait until the election after that.
Yeah.
You see. So
but
that's what's going to happen. The two parties take turns governing, and the next one will be a Democrat.
I mean,
So
we're not going.
It's not going to be Rubio. No.
We're not going to get Alexander occasionally Compos Mentis as the first female president.
No, it'll be Gavin Newsom or somebody like that. It'll be Gavin Newsom, or maybe it'll be Hillary Clinton. I don't know, but Gavin Newsom is the one who's being lined up, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, most of America aren't having anything to do with the war. They've got other things on their mind. This don't take this the wrong way, but this is a generational thing. And they don't seem to be interested in geopolitics at all. Just getting drunk and getting laid. Let's have a little look. There's a 3-minute video of literally going along and asking them, you know, what their thoughts are and everything else and what they're looking forward to. Are they really interested in geopolitics? Have a look at this.
What college you guys go to?
UTC, FAU,
Sacred Heart University.
Ohio State.
Spring break 2026. What is the game plan?
Drinking, blackout with my rack out.
If my mom is watching, I'm sorry, Mom, but I've been getting pretty drunk almost every day.
Hook up with some girls, get with as many girls as we can, and not come back with the STD.
Wake out with one person each night, that's it.
So how many guys have you made out with this week?
I've been here for about 10 days, so 10.
What were their names?
I don't remember.
Name one.
Name me one. Name me one.
What is the craziest thing you've seen at spring break?
Not that crazy. I've seen people do like cocaine off of boobs. I saw a girl like black out on the street. That was pretty exciting. Sunday mimosa drag races.
Do you see that guy take his pants off in the middle of the club?
There's a lot of famous people down here.
Have you seen Johnny Belisario?
What?
Never mind.
Okay.
What is the wildest thing you've done down here?
Got with somebody the first night that I came down here.
Pole dancing.
2 days ago.
Stripping naked, getting in the water.
You gotta say. What'd you do? You went something crazy.
On the strip.
Honestly. All right, on the strip.
No, we had this.
Okay, that wasn't public, but yeah, okay, that's...
What issue facing America is the most important to you?
What bikini I'm gonna wear next? Obesity is terrible.
Ice. Not personally. I'm legal.
Getting a tan on the beach. That's the most important thing in my life right now.
I'm thinking about Starbucks, to be honest. I'm thinking about Starbucks, what I'm gonna get for today.
The elevators don't work. You got 43 floors. The elevators don't work.
I could take this little glass of water, drop it in the magnets. That's the end of the elevator.
What have you heard that Donald Trump has been doing recently?
Gulf of America. That's the last thing I kept up with.
We're going to war with Iraq. That's been crazy.
What do you do in Colombia? You got Maduro out? I don't with Trump, but that done.
He's like trying to sue those people for making jokes about him.
600 times!
You must be happy.
I'm very happy.
The Ayatollah's dead.
I'm so... What? Who? What? What is that?
Who the is Ayatollah?
I've never heard that word in my life.
Lewis, what's Ayatollah?
I haven't heard. I found out about Chuck Norris yesterday. That was more devastating to me.
He was the supreme leader of Iran.
He's dead?
Oh, yeah.
We killed him.
You did? You killed him?
Johnny.
Whoa! If you were in charge, how would you take on Iran?
Yeah, all my girls and we would all start putting belts on them.
We get a bunch of girls in bikinis, we make them run across the battlefield. All the guys are distracted, we all run in.
Look at him in his eyes, I guess. Flirt with him.
I'd blow him up.
I don't know enough about it, but I would probably wipe it out.
Drop a bomb, baby. Bomb the out of him.
James.
Well, I mean, You know, young people are they just want to have fun, don't they? But also, I mean, a lot of people don't really care. This is the thing about politics. You know, a lot of people who are into politics want to talk about foreign affairs, right? Don't they? But actually, it doesn't really matter when it comes to election time. Most people don't really care. You know, there's where it's mattered in Britain, for instance, is among, you know, Muslim voters. Basically, that the last election, it was the Workers' Party did very well among British Muslims, you know, Pakistani, Bangladeshi immigrants, whatever, and because of the Gaza thing, and that's about it, you know.
Were people more politically engaged in the 60s and 70s, James, or has it always been like this? And we're just getting old.
I was born in 1975, so I don't know about the 60s. I don't know. People were probably more interested, you know, back in the 60s, the empire still existed, or some of it did, you know. And so people were possibly a bit more interested in that. And there was a whole thing about, you know, it was a whole issue about how they were cutting the size of the Navy in those days, wasn't there, you know, and all this. But I don't know. Again, I think pretty much people were more interested in things that affect them directly, like jobs, you know, like the cost of it. Now, of course, it is affecting people because, you know, the price of diesel has gone up from, which I use in my car, you know, it's gone up from £1.40 to £1.70 or £1.80 even. But and people are going to be annoyed about that, you know. But I mean, it doesn't mean that let's say they take Iran's side or they want Iran to be defeated quicker or something like that necessarily. It's just they're just hoping that it's all going to be over soon.
Yeah. Oh, fair enough. Sean Murphy wants to weigh in on this. Sean.
Well, Warren, I think all those kids on that beach are the products of a great American education, to be honest.
Yeah, you might well be correct. It is a kind of bizarre thing, or it seems bizarre to me that they are not more. Let's talk about how these things are perceived. We got somebody who wants to talk first of all. Louis Bastos.
In those days, we used to read newspapers from A to Z.
Yeah.
We took time to read newspapers. These kids don't even read a book.
Yeah. I think they've all moved on to Kindle now. There is a misconception sometimes about where the world is really run from. And if you saw earlier on today, the morning show, the subscriber show, we did say that we would get that bit from Wolf Hall and play it about where, and there is a perception that governments run the world. But what we're going to do now is play you this bit from Wolf Hall. Now, this was when Anne Boleyn was meant to be getting together with Henry VIII, and the gentleman, Henry Percy, or Harry Percy, I should say, was literally saying that he was pre-contracted to marry Anne Boleyn. And, of course, they wanted him out of the way. And it was on Thomas Cromwell to go and explain to Harry Percy exactly how the world works and therefore not to cause waves. We said we would play it, so we're going to play it for you now.
Why don't you come on? You always get
Looking for a woman? Oh, God, yes, I thought you'd come. Oh, you're wasting your time. I was pledged to Anne. She allowed me such freedom with herself as only a betrothed woman would allow. Cardinal bullied me out of saying anything last time. I'm not afraid to speak the truth now.
Good. My lord, you've said what you have to say. Now, listen to me. You're a man whose money is almost spent. I'm a man who knows how you've spent it. You're a man who's borrowed all over Europe. I'm a man who knows your creditors. One word from me, and all your debts will be called in.
And what are they going to do? Bankers don't have armies.
Neither will you without any money. My lord, you hold your earldom from the king. Your task is to secure the north, to defend us against Scotland. If you cannot ensure these things, the king will take your land and your titles and give them to somebody who will do the job that you cannot do.
No, he won't. He respects all ancient titles.
How can I explain this to you? The world is not run from where you think it is. From border fortresses, even from Whitehall. The world is run from Antwerp, from Florence, from Lisbon, from wherever the merchant ships set sail off into the west. Not from castle walls, from counting houses, from the pens that scrape out your promissory notes. So believe me when I say that my banker friends and I will rip your life apart. And then, when you are without money and title, yes, I can picture you. Living in a hovel, wearing homespun, bringing home a rabbit for the pot, your lawful wife, Anne Boleyn, skinning and jointing that rabbit. Yes, I wish you all happiness. You were never pre-contracted. Any understanding you think you have, you didn't have it. And if you think Lady Anne loves you, well, you couldn't be more mistaken. I've just come from her. She hates you. She despises you. She wants you gone. So if you say one more word about Lady Anne's freedom with you, I will come and drag you out of whatever hole you're cowering in, and the Duke of Norfolk will bite your bollocks off. I do hope that's clear, my lord.
James, the only reason for playing that is, and of course, that is from the wonderful Wolf Hall series on BBC. You can watch that on BBC iPlayer, I believe, if you're in the UK. I can't get it here, obviously, in the Philippines. The thing that I was going to ask you there, James, do we spend more time looking at the person on the throne rather than the power that puts them there in the first place?
Well, probably, yeah. You know, I mean, there's also a point that what I've been trying to say is that this evening is that what's going on in Iran has been planned for decades. You know, yeah. I mean, they possibly didn't say, well, you know, in 2026 we're going to have a war with Iran, but they would, you know, they've been trying to overthrow the Iranian state for a long time, and now they've taken, you know, the maybe the second to last resort. You know, the last resort might be a land invasion, or it might be obliterating Iran with nuclear weapons or something. That might be the actual last resort. You know, that's not that would be crazy. You know, it might cause might cause Russia and China to launch at the USA. You know, so they don't want to do that, but they are sort of running out of options if they've gone to war directly. So this is the thing, and like I say, Kamala Harris came out and said she was against the war, but if she had won that election last year,
before
the year before, even now, she would be the one running this. You see, and she would have been in charge of the war last summer. So, you know, don't believe that they, you know, they necessarily have too much of a choice. Trump is doing it in his own way. He's managing the public side of it in his own way. He's managing the, he's trying to calm down the stock market or whip it up again, rile it up again.
So him and his pals can make money.
As he does. Well, but that's part of the management. That's part of the government management of the thing.
Right.
And he's trying to be as unpredictable as possible, so that people will, in the hope that the Iranians will be afraid of him or something. But basically, it's going where it's going. But where that is remains to be seen. Do they take a step back now, or do they keep going?
I think we're going to go boots on the ground. But let's talk a little bit about this then, because we've got, since Trump has taken office, we've had Yemen, or interventions or strikes, Yemen, Iraq, Somalia, Nigeria, Syria, Iran, many places like that that have all been hit. It is quite staggering when we talk about, and we've got Iran again. We've had Venezuela, and then we had Iran for the second time. So Trump's had quite a few interventions. So let's have a little look at some of these interventions then, because it is quite. So we're going to go through, and I do apologise for people who might look at this and go, "We're picking on America." We're not. This is the main interventions by presidents. Here you can see Eisenhower had 8. Trump is already on 7, and he's got Cuba looming on the horizon, and possibly China as well. Then we had Kennedy, we've got Johnson, we've got Nixon, we've got Ford, many others that have had these sort of interventions. Nobody's had more than 8. Reagan and Eisenhower are in the lead, and then you've got Kennedy, you've got Johnson, Nixon. Ford had the least, and then of course Carter, Reagan, and the red and the blue obviously is Republican and Democrat. They're pretty much side by side. Bush, and then Obama, and many people think he was a peaceful president, but he wasn't. And then Trump in his first term, and then Biden. And Trump has already had 7. There seems to be, and the facts sort of point this out, for these escalations. Now I'm going to give you a quick idea on this, because it does seem as though we're going to get more and more of this type of stuff coming through. And it really is, how can I put this? It's not a good look when you look at what is happening in terms of how the military interventions have gone. Because according to the Military Intervention Project, which has mapped all these, they turn around and say that it's definitely been escalating. So I'm going to read some of this data out for you, James. I do apologise about this, but there's been 400 military interventions by America since it was formed in 1776. 80 plus countries have been targeted, roughly 1/3 of all nations. There's been 200 plus post-war operations, which is half of all interventions. 34% in Latin America, the most targeted region, and 25%. And the pace is accelerating since 1991. It's up 25%. So here we go. Let's go through this. The regional breakdown is striking. 34% of these have been in the Latin American countries. I don't think that's probably something that is, how can I put this, something that really upsets everybody. But there we go. You've got Latin America, 34%. East Asia and the Pacific, 23%, Middle East and North Africa, 14%, Europe, 13%, Sub-Sahara, 10%, and South Asia, 6%. Any of that come as a surprise to you, James? Can't hear you, buddy. You might have your mic off.
They're not interventions; they're wars. I mean, people use this jargon because since the United Nations was formed, it's illegal to actually go to war without a Security Council resolution. But
yes,
but it doesn't. No, it doesn't surprise me. You see, I mean, poor old Cuba. You know, they've been very brave for a very long time, for 60 years, and they may win through, but I'm very afraid for them that if the US sort of comes out badly in Iran, against Iran, that they will then invade Cuba just to show everyone that they can still invade the country. You know, but you know, even if they do though, I'm not sure exactly what they'll get out of it, because the Cubans will say, well, hold on, you know, we liked our education system and we liked our health system. You know, it's actually very good. It's as good as the USA or better. And we don't really want, we don't want any of your. We don't want, and, you know, we like our system of democracy too. We don't want any of your nonsense, you know.
Yeah, there's my era then. So you know, 1776 to 1867, and then the gunboat diplomacy, then the World Wars, 1918 to 45, then 46 to 89, then 1990 to 2001, 2001 to 2025. So you can see by the list of bombings, shows of force, and covert operations, as they call it, as James will call it, they're all wars. But that's something that's come up. So I'm just going to go through some, because I was looking into it and I thought it was jolly interesting to go through. Now, beyond the two world wars, the United States has fought several major wars, including hundreds of thousands of troops, sustained combat over the years and enormous casualties. The Korean War and the Vietnam Wars alone killed 90,000 Americans and millions of locals. The post 9/11 wars in Afghanistan and Iraq have consumed over 8 trillion and resulted in over 900,000 deaths. Now, from the late 1800s through the 1930s, the US militarily intervened or had a war, or whatever you want to call it, repeated in Central America to protect American business interests, particularly those of the United Fruit Company. Those so-called banana wars saw Marines occupy Haiti for 19 years, the Dominican Republic for 8 years, Nicaragua 21 years on and off, and Cuba multiple times. The pattern continued then well into the Cold War, and since the end of World War II, the United States has bombed at least 30 countries. These range from massive sustained campaigns, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, Iraq, to limited strikes, Libya, Sudan, to ongoing drone operations, Yemen, Somalia, Pakistan. The population of countries bombed by the US since 1945 roughly represents 1/3 of humanity, which sounds absolutely crazy. Now, the CIA has publicly acknowledged at least 17 successful regime changes, but the full list is much, much further, of full and confirmed and strongly suspected backings. The 1953 coup in Iran has had catastrophic long-term consequences directly to the Islamic Revolution 1979. The 54 Guatemala coup triggered a 36-year civil war, and the destabilization of the Cambodia helped the Khmer Rouge seize power, leading to almost 2 million deaths in all. And of course, the war on terror and the drone age that comes with it. There is a massive list. I'm just going to pop this up for you. So first of all, here's your main interventions, supposedly by type: direct military action, show of force and threats, bombing airstrikes, covert ops.
Yeah. Okay. Look. What the way to think about it is this: between 1780, when was it? 1783, 1785, when the actual
1776
War of Independence. No, 1776. Nothing happened in 1776. The war started in 1775 and it was finished in 1783. 1776 is just an administrative thing, right? But from 1783 through to about 1901. All of this stuff, all of the wars were about actual expanding US territory. So like the Mexican War, for instance, and then the Spanish-American War, in which they seized the Philippines, where you live, and Puerto Rico, which is one of the last Spanish territories in the New World, colonies. and Cuba another one, and Cuba became a protectorate, and Puerto Rico became an actual territory, an overseas territory of the US, and so forth, right? And then the next thing is the Second World War. Really, the Second World War is the USA. For the USA, it was a war against its main rival in the imperial rival in the Pacific, which was Japan, and it defeated Japan. And then everything since 1945 was about the US as this kind of neo-colonial empire where they control the world or large parts of it, and but they don't directly make countries into their direct colonies, but they control the, they overthrow the governments of them, often through direct war and so forth. See, so that's the three real periods of it, right? And we're still in the same period that began in 1945. That hasn't stopped. And is it ever going to end? What would have to happen for it to end? Would the USA have to be defeated very badly? I think what's happening in Iran right now is not going to be bad enough.
China.
So something else will have to happen. Will the US have to collapse economically? Well, how's that going to happen? You know what I mean? So I don't quite see the way out.
No, well, this is the thing, isn't it? I don't think, is there a way out? Is there a way to stop America? Is it on its last legs, as people seem to think it is, or is it America just going to go along and keep doing what it does?
Well, you see, after the Vietnam War, you'd have thought, that was the really big defeat, where like 60,000 of them got killed, right? 60,000 of their soldiers and airmen and so on got killed. And that didn't stop them. And like losing, a dozen or 2 dozen in the Persian Gulf this time around is not going to stop them. The oil price will go back down once the thing is over.
Yeah.
And so forth. So, they're whatever,
Does
this doesn't really hurt the USA that badly. It's hurting Iran more than the USA.
Does this cause a problem further down the line? This is Penny Wong from Australia and Kaya Callis signing a deal to say that if either of them get in trouble from China, the other one will come to their aid. When this China thing blows up in late 2027, early 28, or it may take a bit longer, depending on the Iran situation, does NATO suddenly forgive America and they're all chums together and go and take on China?
Well, they might do, but I mean, China is not going to invade Estonia or any other member of the European Union, right? Or NATO. And it's probably not going to invade Australia either. I don't think they want to invade Australia. It's quite a long way off, for starters, even from China, and it's and why would they want to? What would they gain out of that? So in that sense, it's meaningless, unless, and I think it would have to be the US, like you say, it would have to be the US that starts something with China.
That's what I'm saying. Is there a more sinister thing behind it?
Oh my God, God help us all if that happens, because China's got the bomb. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, who knows where that's going to end? I mean, it could escalate very, very quickly.
Yes, it could.
Are they crazy enough to do that? Are they going to? I mean, a lot of people have been saying, "Oh well, Ukraine is going to be the model. They're gonna like turn Taiwan into a Ukraine for
well, I've always said that.
Well, how are you going to do that? I mean, it didn't work in Ukraine, did it?
No, I've always said that Ukraine and Iran are the appetizers, and the main meal is China. And I still feel that with the rise of stuff that's going on, although there may be a little bit of a get out clause, James, in the the Philippines, Marcos has actually said they've got a real problem because we have an energy crisis here in the Philippines, and they're talking to China. Now, America aren't going to like that at all.
Well, okay. I mean, China's probably feeling the pinch too. The question is, how do you? Yeah, I mean, maybe the Filipino government will see sense and say, well, like a war with China is really not in our interests. We might get, it might end up with our country destroyed or cause a lot of harm, and then, we don't. And the prelude to it, if Iran is the prelude to that, then we don't really like that either. We want that to stop.
But here's where we have a problem, James, and this is what I want to ask you about, because the Philippines is a bit like the how can I put it, the Asian version of Ukraine. It's not whether your politicians are corrupt; it's how corrupt they are. That could lead to Marcos getting overthrown very quickly if he gets into bed with China.
Yes, okay, and then they'll find someone else after him. But like, again, what? How does it benefit them? Why would they go along with it? Ultimately, it's kind of suicide. Why do you want?
But America likes suicide, don't they? Look at Ursula von der Leyen's deal with Donald Trump. Yeah.
I mean, do you want to be the next? Lots of countries like the Philippines and Taiwan and others have to ask themselves, do you want to be the next Ukraine?
Yeah.
Because things are not great for Ukraine.
No.
Again, that's a war that's very painful for Ukraine.
Yes.
And they might still be going after 4 years, but ultimately they've suffered a lot of pain, and they're just going to have to make a peace deal now. The people who told them to go and have a war with Russia are now telling them to sign a peace deal and sign away part of their territory. So that's what will happen to you. So don't who would choose that? They'll just, they'll probably just make some excuses. They'll say, "Oh, sorry, we sort of, all our military, all our tanks and things have just, they're up for their MOT now. They're at the garage or something.
They're all in the garage. Can't possibly carry on."
Yeah, exactly. So come back next month, maybe, and we'll have a chat. But it's like, it's not. And if the USA says, "Well, we'll overthrow your government," he said, "Okay, well, fine, I'll just resign then." But see if you can find someone else who'll go along with this, because I don't know if you will.
I've had enough. Because this is Philippine Airlines at the moment.
Several countries have said we cannot fuel your aircraft, so you will have to carry the fuel there and back. And that's around here. The long haul is going to be a much more serious problem.
So inevitably, planes will have to be grounded.
We're hoping not, but it's a possibility.
So just letting you know that we're starting to feel the pinch here. Somewhere else, and it's going to happen. Somewhere else where it's starting to feel the pinch is in Lvov. I don't know whether you've seen this, James. Here we go. Let's have a little look here. This. That is small arms fire trying to bring down drones, these Garand drones in Lvov. And of course, one hit very, very hard indeed in Lvov. This is a targeting. We're not quite sure who's dead here. But they're going crazy about this, James, in the last hour or so. That's obviously crashing in to Lvov. It's not just a random drone, is it? When Russia normally send one that far. John Coleman has apparently written quite a few books. What's on that again? Let's just have a look, because I've got a lot on the chat there. John Coleman has written some books on this on the topic. Have a look. There we go. Look, about the oil and everything else. I would imagine that's what is being talked about there. The Ukrainians are struggling. They say that they're doing fantastically well again, but they're losing more and more ground. It's another 1,400 troops they've lost this week. They can't keep going, can they?
I think some of those the casualty figures may be a little bit exaggerated, but if you look at the sources of the people who count destroyed equipment in the field, including the pro-Ukrainian ones, not just the pro-Russian ones, they're running out of stuff. I mean, what have they got left really? And there is a limited. The countries that support them have a limited ability to supply them. You see, there is some new equipment coming in. They claim that they're making lots of artillery guns. This thing called a Bogdana or something, which is a Czech-made truck with a 155mm artillery gun, which caliber 155mm caliber, which is a NATO caliber, not one that they had. And I've got a sneaking feeling that it's all the self-propelled guns that they've been supplied before, that have been destroyed, and the towed guns. They've managed to salvage the barrel and the gun part of it, and repair it and put it on a new vehicle, so they're not necessarily getting all guns, but all this crap, they say, oh yeah, and we're producing hundreds and hundreds of things and that's not credible because their power stations are all being bombed, and everything the place is chaos. So, it's like I said, when you're the country that told you to go to war is now saying, well, sign the peace treaty and give up some land, then you've been had, right?
Yep, and they have been. There's no question about that. I think you're absolutely right. This lunacy is still going on, James Tweedy.
The distance between us stands out. If you zoom in what unites us, the distance disappears. We are like-minded in so many aspects. Our commitment to democracy and international law, our shared goal of climate neutrality by 2050, with your co-chairing of the next COP, our concern for affordable healthcare and housing, and even the protection of our children, where Europe is learning from Australia's trailblazing approach to social media. And this is what our partnership represents: cooperation by conviction, shaping together a new, fairer and stronger world order. Thank you very much.
James, this woman actually came out in her speech and turned around and said, I'm the first female leader. She's not a leader of anything. She wasn't elected to anything.
Okay, well, I mean, she's not the first female prime minister or president of a country or whatever, and she isn't, like you say, she isn't the president of a country. So, but okay, I mean, that's a lot of platitudes and nice words about Australia. I mean, what are they really? What the EU really does is it makes trade arrangements with other countries.
Yeah.
So that's probably what this is really about.
Is she going there begging for oil?
Sorry?
Is she going there begging secretly for oil? Or is it just the defense pact that they're doing?
Okay. I mean, there is a worldwide shortage of oil because of this war. There wouldn't be if, let's say, the sanctions on Iran were lifted and the EU went along with the sanctions. So the EU went along with the USA in saying, oh, well, no, Iran hasn't complied with the deal, the 2015 deal. So we're gonna put sanctions on them. We're not going to buy their oil, right?
Yeah.
If the US
Fair enough.
wanted Iranian oil, they just have to lift the sanctions and then buy it, So they don't want the oil; they want the oil off the market. So I don't know what. Again, platitudes about net zero and the environment and climate change.
Yeah.
It's just that's sort of that's an excuse for you're like petrol and diesel going up by 40p a litre.
Exactly that. We'll let Sean Murphy jump in because we've got a few more things for James to talk about. Just in case you were wondering, we're going to, unless James wants to stay with us, but we've literally got a 4-hour show tonight because we're going to be playing a couple of videos for you as well. But James will probably take off after the 2 hours. Sean Murphy, he'll going to have.
Well, I think von der Leyen's gone there. It is to do with trade. Germany and Europe are not producing any opals anymore. And somebody's told her that Australia has loads of opals.
Fair enough. Probably go into a crowning tiara, I would imagine. When she gets done, we're going to play 3 more stories, and then of course we'll let James get on. I don't think James is probably going to want to stay for the full 4 hours because the simple fact that he's got some dinner to get. And of course, pay attention to his children as well. But let's have a little look at this. This is the best. This is called the best way to bull hide, James. You ever taken part in a bull run, James?
No, I missed that one. I know people who've been there, to Pamplona.
Yeah, I've done Pamplona. It was terrifying, to be honest with you. I nearly broke my neck. I hurdled over a barrier and landed on some bloke who was quite sizable. And the reason I nearly broke my neck is he wasn't very happy about it. I think he was on the verge of filling me in until his mate grabbed him and sort of gave him a drink. But there we are. Here's the all-comers ball. Sometimes it's a good idea not to have a go at people in stadiums. You never know just how much of a rocky some guy is. Now, pay attention to this chap here. This happened at an American sports arena. It took him a while to get going, James, but once he got into it, he did quite well, I thought.
Yeah, exactly.
And finally, we'll leave you. We'll leave James with a lovely story. This is an autistic child up on a bridge. Have a look at this.
Keep walking.
Stop! Keep going! No! No! Keep going! No, this way! Yes! Oh my God!
It's actually nice that they managed to rescue the kid. Something I did notice. Something I did notice there, James, which always bothers me when you see these people trying to help, is everybody shouting at once. That just frightens the children even worse.
Well, yeah, or just confuses them because they're probably shouting contradictory things, you know?
Yeah, exactly that. Don't
But,
go there,
yeah.
go there. Yeah, quite. I wonder if they'd like to try that in the Millwall pub. Yeah, it'd be a good effort, Mo. James, where can people find you on your social media?
On X at L Tweedy, you know, so the at symbol and ELTWEEDIE.
Oh, lovely. So please go and give James a follow. James, we're going to let you go. I know you won't want to stay the full 4 hours. We're going to let you go. Thank you very much for your input tonight. And as always, lovely to have you back after a week off because of internet problems. Internet problems on our side, I should say. But as always, James brings a different view of things, and very lucky we are to have him. James, thank you very much, buddy.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me, everyone. See you around.
Bye-bye. Take care. Now
Cheers, James.
We're going to end the live stream here. And if you like what we do here, because we're going to be going on to something else. And of course, we've got another hour and a half to go. But if you like what we do, come and see us, Warren Thornton, over on Patreon. Take care. Right, that's the end of the live stream. And of course, James has now gone. We're going to play you this by Labrock.
Probably we don't need to argue that over the last few months and weeks we've been witnesses to some very dramatic turns of events in Latin America, in the Middle East. Events that directly stem from the attempts of the Western minority to retain what is left of their dominance on the international arena, using brute force, regardless of any signed or ratified obligations in international law as regards civilized relations among all states as per the UN Charter.
There we go. So that's Lavrov saying what he's saying. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to be playing you two videos. One is the Alexander Makuros video from tonight, and one is the Alexander, or I should say, the Alex Christoforou one. And we'll start with the Alex Christoforou one. Those people who've got to go, absolutely fine. Please catch up. But we've got about another 1 hour and 45 minutes of video to show you. These two guys are probably the best commentators on the war. I disagree with James. I think there's going to be boots on the ground. It'll be interesting. I haven't seen this, so it'll be interesting to hear what these gentlemen say and see if they agree or disagree or go somewhere in the middle. If you do have to go, please make sure you do catch up, of course, later on. But for now, we're going to take you to the Alexander Christoforou one, which is 48 minutes long, and we will play that for you. Thanks, as I say, for being here, and of course for watching our show. We're going to play this now.
Civilian purposes?
They have. Thank you.
What about the Strait of Hormuz? Who's going to be in control of
That'll
that?
be opened very soon if this works.
How soon? And who's in control of it? Will Iran still be able to control the flow of oil?
Be jointly controlled.
By whom?
Maybe me. Maybe me.
You want the United States to be in
Me
control
and the Ayatollah, whoever the Ayatollah is, whoever the next Ayatollah. Look, and there'll also be a form of a very serious form of a regime change. Now, in all fairness, everybody's been killed from the regime.
This is my video update on this Tuesday afternoon, March the 24th, coming to you from Nicosia, Cyprus. Let's talk about some news. And before we get to Trump's latest and perhaps his biggest flip-flop ever, we got some Trump tacoing to discuss, which is the big story we need to talk about.
We're going to upgrade these guys anyway. This is Top War, by the way. And unlike those other fake games, this is the real deal.
What is happening on the ground? The actions, not the words. And the actions are pointing to a very large U.S. military deployment to Iran. On March the 25th, the 5,000 Marines should be arriving in the area. These are the Marines that will spearhead some sort of an operation to take Karg Island or to open the Strait of Hormuz, to control the Strait of Hormuz, because we are getting reports which indicate that the Strait of Hormuz is actually opening up. But it is opening up if you pay the $2 million transit fee, and if you're not an American or an Israeli-owned tanker. We are seeing the real-time movement of ships through the Strait of Hormuz, and it looks like those ships are paying the $2 million fee, probably in Chinese yuan. Iran is making some big money now with these transit fees, but that may be one of the goals of the Marines that will be arriving in the area either today or tomorrow. Karg Island, taking and controlling Karg Island, perhaps taking and controlling the Strait of Hormuz. There have been reports claiming that the Marines will spearhead some sort of operation into Iran to find the uranium and to extract the uranium. I don't know how that's going to happen when the United States admits that they don't even know where the uranium is, but anyway, that's one of the operations that is being talked about. There are reports claiming that the United States may be building an even bigger force to take control of some sort of area in Iran, a coastline or a shoreline, and secure some sort of foothold in Iran. And that is where I get to the news of the massive buildup that is taking place and continues to take place for all of Trump's flip-flopping on Iran. We are going to escalate. We are not going to escalate. We're going to obliterate their power plants. We're in discussions for a peace or a resolution. For all of that talk, we have the Marines. We have reports about the 82nd Airborne, which is a rapid response light paratrooper force. We have reports about infantry being deployed to the region. A lot of weapons, a lot of hardware making their way to the area. So a continued buildup while we have this Truth Social post from Trump and subsequent interview with the media where the U.S. president claims that there have been some talks taking place between the United States and Iran, and there could be some sort of a resolution to the conflict, a negotiated settlement. So the actions are a military buildup. That is what we are seeing on the ground. The talk is of some sort of a peace deal taking place. So Trump entered the weekend giving Iran an ultimatum to either open up the Strait of Hormuz or he will obliterate Iran's power plants. Iran called Trump's bluff, and they said, you obliterate our power plants, we are going to retaliate and obliterate the power plants across the region. We may even look at the desalination facilities in the region as well. And so we finished the weekend and entered Monday with Trump's Truth Social post pretty much in all caps. So you know it's important if it's in all caps, with Trump saying that that there are some talks that have been taking place and will continue to take place. These discussions are progressing nicely, and for this reason, he is calling a 5-day pause to the obliteration of the power plants. 5 days. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 5 days. That takes us right to the weekend. It also calms the markets. It also tries to push the price of oil down under 100. And by Friday, you could be having a significant U.S. Marine presence and other military forces and military hardware in the region as well, just in time for the weekend where you could get an escalation. That is the pattern. Weekend escalation, weekday de-escalation. That has been the pattern of this conflict. So Trump, he spoke to the media following this Truth Social post, and he said that Iran wants this deal.
After spending 50 years on Wall Street, I just handpicked the company I believe could go down as one of the best performing stocks of 2026. And
Iran called him. Iran wants to talk. Iran wants a deal. Trump said that the United States has killed all of the leadership of Iran. So the big problem is that the United States doesn't know who to talk to. But in the same freaking sentence, pretty much the same sentence, the United States doesn't know who to talk to. But Trump says that they're talking to a potential leader that they've picked out. So they've obliterated the leadership, but they're also talking to someone who is the leadership and could be the future leadership. And that person is the Speaker of the Parliament, Mr. Galidaf. That's a name that I would bet most people have never heard before. I have never heard before of Mr. Galidaf, though he holds an important position, Speaker of the Parliament. He was not one of the people that all of us that have been covering the region from the outside, looking in, had identified as a key leader. It was the Ayatollah, Larijani, Pezeshkian, Arachi. Galidaf is a new name for most of us, though people in Iran and people that are analysts of Iran, expert analysts of Iran, I'm sure Galidaf is a name that they're familiar with. My understanding is that he is actually a hardliner. But Trump is signaling that this could be the guy that his administration is speaking with, and this could be the guy that Trump will pick, because remember, Trump wants to pick the leader of Iran. It's very important for Trump to pick the leader of Iran. This could be the guy that he picks to run Iran. So that is the name that we were given. Galibaf. We're in the testing phase. Trump admin eyeing Iran's parliament speaker as U.S.-backed leader. So what does Mr. Galibaf say about all of this? What was his reaction to this mention from Trump and the Trump White House? He posted on X, "No negotiations have been held with the U.S., and fake news is used to manipulate the financial and oil markets and escape the quagmire in which the U.S. and Israel are trapped." He had harsher words to say in his post. I won't read you what else he said, but pretty much his message was that we will continue to fight until our objectives are met and the enemy is punished, and the reports about negotiations Well, it's all fake news, and it's being done so that the Trump administration can manipulate the markets. Markets close on the weekend. Let's talk some smack. Market opens on the weekend. Let's talk some peace. That seems to be the trend that everyone is identifying, that everyone is understanding, except the markets. The markets seem to be going along with Trump's messaging, with his apparent manipulation. Though, I have to say, when Trump announced the peace talks, the markets reacted, and the stocks went up, oil went down, and right away, without any hesitation, Iran immediately came out with messages like this message from Galibaf, saying that this is all fake. There are no talks with the Trump administration. We have no idea what U.S. President Trump is saying. We have not spoken to him. We have not spoken to the United States about any kind of a peace deal. We have no idea what he is talking about. And when Iran put out this message, Iran officials put out this message, including Araghchi, the foreign minister, he said the same thing, no negotiations are taking place. Well, then the price of oil went back up and stocks went back down. We're talking about a $3 trillion swing in the markets in a matter of hours. In a matter of 1 hour, we had about a $3 trillion market swing. So the market is being driven by Trump headlines and Iranian denials. That is what is driving Wall Street, driving the energy markets. So the reports are from the United States, from their side of things, that Pakistan is going to be mediating, though we are also getting reports that Turkey is also trying to mediate these talks that Trump is referencing. And there are some reports which claim that Witkoff and Kushner are actually in Pakistan, and they're waiting for Galibaf to show up so they can begin their negotiations. There are other reports which claim that Witkoff and Kushner are allegedly in Pakistan waiting for somebody. They're just waiting for someone from Iran to show up. They're just hanging out in Pakistan, chilling in Pakistan, waiting for someone from Iran to show up. It's dangerous to show up to a negotiation with Witkoff and Kushner, the Grim Reaper. Very dangerous, because whoever meets with Kushner or Witkoff seems to get a missile pointed in their direction from the Trump administration. So it's very, very dangerous to engage in a negotiation with Witkoff and Kushner. We also have reports from Israeli media, from Ynet, where they claim that Khamenei, the supreme leader, actually gave his blessing to Araghchi for some sort of a negotiated settlement to this war. And that Araghchi actually spoke with Witkoff. It was a secret telephone conversation. Kushner was also present, and Araghchi received the consent and blessing of the new supreme leader for a speedy resolution of the conflict, provided that Tehran's demands are met. And Tehran's demands, if this report is to be believed, I don't believe it, but let's just assume that this report is to be believed. If that is indeed the case, then Tehran's demands are very, very different than where the U.S. is at. I've talked about the demands from Iran, and I've talked about the demands from the United States, and both countries remain very far apart from one another. So Trump was asked about the Strait of Hormuz as he was speaking to the media, and Trump's comment, his statement about the Strait of Hormuz, will go down in history as one of the most bizarre, out there statements from any president in all of history. Trump said that the Strait of Hormuz will be jointly controlled. When a reporter asked him about the Strait of Hormuz, all of these negotiations taking place, and you're speaking with some sort of leadership in Iran, and things are going well, Mr. President, what's going on with the Strait of Hormuz? And Trump's response was that the Strait of Hormuz could be, will be, possibly be jointly controlled. And the reporter then asked the question, by who? And Trump said, by me? Maybe me? Could be me? Maybe me? I like it. I like that Hormuz. Maybe I'll control it. He said, maybe me and maybe the Ayatollah. Whoever the Ayatollah is, he said. Whoever the Ayatollah is, because he has to pick the next leader. I pick the next leader. Whoever that leader is going to enter into a joint venture, a joint partnership with Trump, and they're going to control the Strait of Hormuz. The two of them, Trump and the current Ayatollah or the new Ayatollah, they're going to be controlling the Strait of Hormuz. It'll be a partnership. It'll be the Trumpatola. Trumpatola. They're going to control the Strait of Hormuz. That was his statement. Unbelievable. I did not have that one on my bingo card. That's for sure. So Trump held another press conference, and with him was, I believe Pam Bondi was with him, and also Pete Hegseth was with Trump. And Trump puts the blame of the Iran war pretty much on Pete Hegseth. He pretty much blamed Pete Hegseth. Pete Hegseth, run away, bro. Run away. Yo, bro, Pete Hegseth. Grab your keg, grab your beer, and run away. Resign. Because this thing's about to be blamed on you. Yeah, Trump was like, Hegseth, he wanted to really jump at this war. And Pete Hegseth's like, huh? What?
If you're a native or fluent English-speaking Western expat living abroad and you're looking for a new...
Yeah, Hegseth is going to get the blame. No doubt about it. So Iran is trolling Trump. They claim that there have been no negotiations. Nothing has been discussed between Iran and the United States, though they do admit that they are passing messages to each other. This is true. Iran is saying that they're sending messages through a third party, for example, through Egypt, through Qatar, through the UK. And they're passing messages to the United States. The United States is passing messages via Egypt, Qatar, Oman, etc. to Iran. So this is taking place. This is true. Direct negotiations, direct talks. Iran is denying all of this, and they're trolling Trump. The Iran embassy in South Africa posted on X, the Strait of Hormuz will be controlled by me and the Ayatollah. And you can see the image on your screen. That is coming from the official account of the Iran embassy in South Africa. So Netanyahu, he said that he has been speaking with Trump, and he is fully on board with these apparent talks and negotiations that are taking place between the United States and Iran. He is in the loop. That is what Netanyahu said. But Netanyahu also said that the strikes will continue. The military operation will continue. Israel and the United States, they actually hit an Iranian gas pipeline. So they attacked a gas pipeline, which is energy infrastructure. So how do you think Iran is going to retaliate? Tit for tat. That has been the way Iran has conducted this war. You strike a gas pipeline, we strike a gas pipeline. But the main message from Netanyahu is that the conflict will continue. We will continue to attack Iran and continue to hit targets. And the United States will continue to attack Iran and hit targets. The United States has a big military buildup. And the 5-day pause is just about the power plants. So keep that in mind. When Trump says a 5-day pause, it's not a 5-day pause on the military activity or the attacks. It's a 5-day pause on what he would have allegedly possibly done, which was to go after the Iranian power plants. So that's what he put on pause. He put his warning, his ultimatum on pause is basically what Trump did. The Israeli publication Ynet is also reporting that Trump may want to end the conflict by April 9th. That may be the day that Trump has in mind to declare some sort of victory, to figure out a way to frame all of this as some sort of victory. That would be 5 weeks of war, which according to Ynet fits with Trump's timeline for this conflict. It also addresses the fact that the markets cannot take much more of this war. Things are looking really bad in the markets. I've talked about energy shortages that are already taking place, and not many people are talking about the bond market. The bond market is not looking so good for the Trump administration. If there's one thing that spooks Trump more than anything else, it is the bond market. So the bond market is signaling that this war is not sustainable. This can't go on much longer, or else the U.S. is going to pay a very heavy economic price. The New York Times put out a report which claims that Netanyahu, he called Trump 48 hours before the initial attack. And basically Netanyahu, he convinced Trump via telephone call to move forward with the assassination of Khamenei, the decapitation strike against Khamenei. Netanyahu sold Trump on the idea that killing Khamenei would lead to a collapse in the Iranian government, and then the Trump administration would have their regime change. And this was information that allegedly Netanyahu got from Mossad. Mossad told Netanyahu, just take out Khamenei. We've got our guys there on the ground as well. You take out Khamenei, the whole thing collapses. We get our regime change. By Monday, Tuesday, when the weekend is over, all is good and we have a new government in place which is friendly to us and to the United States. And Netanyahu called up Trump, and according to the New York Times, they sold Trump on this. Trump believed it. He bought into it, even though the New York Times claims that the CIA, none other than the CIA, went against Mossad and Netanyahu's intel, and they said, we don't think that killing Khamenei is going to lead to a quick regime change. But Trump, according to the New York Times, he decided to go with Netanyahu and ignored the CIA, if you want to believe that reporting from the NYT. The Wall Street Journal is reporting that Saudi Arabia is now thinking of entering the war against Iran. Saudi Arabia and other Gulf states, according to the Wall Street Journal, have had enough of.
If you don't work in IT, keep scrolling. Okay, now that they're gone, how are we doing? How many passwords?
The strikes into their country from Iran. and now they are considering entering the war on the side of the United States and Israel. Gulf states edge towards joining fight against Iran. Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates get tougher on basing and finances. That is from the WSJ. You know, the Gulf states, they are taking pretty much the exact path, or a very, very similar path to the EU states with Project Ukraine. They're getting drawn into this conflict in much the same way that Europe was drawn into the conflict, the proxy war against Russia. Instead of the GCC countries telling Trump enough, no more, close up your bases, leave us alone, we've had enough, they're taking the opposite route, and they're escalating, and they're joining up with the US and Israel, trying to get a quick defeat of Iran in much the same way that the EU joined up with Bidenopolis and Sullivan and Blinken, thinking that they would get a quick regime change of Russia with Project Ukraine. And once you get on the escalation escalator, just like the EU, the GCC states, it's going to be very difficult to get off the escalation escalator. And look at what happened to Germany and the deindustrialization of Germany. It's going to be 1,000 times worse for the UAE and Saudi Arabia and the GCC states if they get on the escalator with the Trump administration on this one. So this brings us to the very, very suspicious trading that appears to be taking place with oil, with stocks on the weekend, and then on the weekday come Monday, all of it based on Trump's Truth Social posts. We are getting some very, very bizarre and suspicious trades. And the trade that took place on Monday, that took place on the weekend, and on Monday, specifically Monday, has a lot of people talking. A lot of people are talking about this trade. Now, some reports claim that these trades took place 15 minutes before Trump posted his Truth Social post about peace talks and negotiations with Iran and the 5-day pause. And other accounts claim these trades were made 14 minutes before the Truth Social post went up. Other accounts say 5 minutes before the Truth Social post went up. Doesn't matter whether it was 15 minutes or 14 minutes or 5 minutes, or even 1 day before Trump posted his 5-day pause on obliterating Iran's energy infrastructure and alleged peace talks with Iran. I don't think the actual time makes a difference, because I see a lot of people on X debating the time, and they're looking at the charts and saying it wasn't 15 minutes before, it wasn't 5 minutes before, it was 24 hours before, it was 20 hours before. Doesn't matter. Even if it was a day, even if it was 2 days before Trump posted his pause message on Truth Social, something is up. Even the Financial Times is reporting that something is strange with the markets and with traders. Here is the post from the Financial Times, an exclusive. Traders made bets worth $500 million in the oil market about 15 minutes before Donald Trump's post, touting productive talks with Iran, sent the price of crude tumbling. From the Kobesi letter, is this the best time trade of 2026? At 6:50 a.m. Eastern Time today, $1.5 billion in notional value worth of S&P 500 futures contracts were bought. This trade was so large it sent the entire index plus 0.3% higher that minute. Then 14 minutes later at 7:04 a.m. Eastern Time, President Trump announced productive discussions with Iran were underway. By 7:10 a.m. Eastern Time, the S&P had added plus $2 trillion in market cap. The $1.5 billion position gained plus 60 million in minutes. And there are more accounts detailing the excellent timed trade, perhaps the greatest timed trade in all of history. Very suspicious stuff going on. Now, I understand the strategy of wanting to keep oil, trying to manipulate the markets to keep oil under 100. I get it, trying to manipulate the markets with headlines and news announcements when the markets open and when the markets close.
Gamers deserve good stuff. You guys know what I'm talking about. Easy to pick up. The gameplay's.
You don't want Iran's strategy of economic retaliation to work if you're the Trump administration, right? You want to try to keep the price of oil under 100. You want to try to keep the markets as calm as possible, as calm as you can keep them. You are fighting a war in the Middle East. Of course, everyone is very nervous. You have shortages in gas, in oil, in fertilizer, and helium. You have the Strait of Hormuz closed, or at least now the Strait of Hormuz is open, but you have to pay $2 million, and you have to pay that amount in Chinese yuan. So if you're the Trump administration, if you want to continue this war, and if you want your ground forces to invade, which is going to be a massive escalation, you want to try to control the markets as best as possible, and information warfare, okay. We can all kind of understand that. It makes sense, but if there is some sort of manipulation taking place because there are people on the inside that know exactly what Trump is going to post and when he is going to post it, and people on the inside, or people in the know, let's say people in the know, are making all kinds of money by placing bets 10 minutes or 14 minutes or 15 minutes before Trump posts these things on Truth Social, well then, this is stuff that would make Hunter Biden blush, right? Hunter Biden is watching all of this saying, man, and I was selling arts for $500,000. What a chump I am. But Joe Biden is saying 10% for the big guy. It's peanuts. Peanuts. Oh boy. Not good. This is not good, and it's grabbing the attention of a lot of people, this news about the timing of all of these trades. Anyway, I will leave it there. Let's talk about a trade deal. Let's talk about the US-EU trade deal. This was the trade deal that they hammered out at Trump's golf club in Scotland. Perhaps the worst trade deal in all of history. That's what it was dubbed. The worst trade deal in all of history, not for Trump, but for the EU. Trump made the best trade deal in all of history with the EU. The EU and Ursula, she negotiated the worst trade deal ever in the history of the world. That was the trade deal where Ursula, in order to get lower tariffs, she agreed to 600 billion or 700 billion invested in the United States. EU companies, European companies would invest 600 or 700 billion in the United States. I don't know how she's going to do that, how she's going to order or convince companies to invest in the United States. But anyway, she made that promise, agreed to that. She also agreed to purchase 750 billion in U.S. energy, in U.S. LNG, and she made all kinds of concessions. She got nothing in return from the United States except a lower tariff, a little bit lower of a tariff rate. That was it. That was it. The worst trade in all of history. Well, fast forward to today, and the United States, the U.S. ambassador to the European Union, yes, there is such a position, to my shock and surprise. I forgot the name of the guy who's the U.S. ambassador to the European Union. He's some fast food executive. I believe his name is Pudzer or something like that. Pudzer, who was a fast food exec. He is now telling the EU it's time to sign that trade deal. It is time to sign that trade deal. The Parliament's going to vote on it. And it's time for them to green light it, to wrap it up. And that would make the European Union fully dependent on the United States and especially on U.S. LNG. Interesting timing to all of this, huh? The EU is to pass a trade deal or risk losing favorable access to LNG. That is the U.S. warning. European Parliament set to vote this week on whether to ratify Turnberry Agreement signed last year, the agreement signed in Scotland. Here is a message from the U.S. ambassador to the EU. This is what he told Europe, the EU, ahead of their big vote. Europe's going to need that energy. That's a direct quote. So we need to cut back on the regulatory restrictions to our shipping, them, the energy, and also the regulatory restrictions that make that energy more expensive once it gets here. Europe is going to need that energy. What a statement. Wow. Wow. The timing to all of this, huh? You better sign that deal, Ursula, because we are the only game in town. You have no one else. You don't have Russia. You don't have Qatar. No Middle East. No Strait of Hormuz. You continue to place sanctions on Russia. It is the U.S. That's it. So you have this $750 billion deal that you agreed to in Scotland. It's time to pass it. It's time to sign it. It's time to wrap it up. Because you're going to need the energy. And the EU Commission is urging MEPs to vote through the EU-US deal, despite fresh tariffs. This is coming from Euronews. The European Commission is telling Parliament members, sign it.
If you missed out on the major run-ups in stocks like Nvidia, Tesla, and Meta Platforms, this is your second chance to get in on the ground.
The European Union now fully under the control of Trump and his Truth Social posts. It depends how Trump wakes up every day. That is going to dictate for the next 2-3 years the EU's energy security. The energy security now is dependent on Trump's emotions. He may wake up one morning and say, I don't want to export LNG to Europe anymore. And it's very possible he's going to do that. I would put money on Trump doing that. He's going to wake up one day and say, you know, we need the LNG in the United States. So I'm keeping it here. No exports to Europe for 3 months. I can definitely see him doing that. No doubt about it. So the European Union, what they did place in the agreement, which the United States is reviewing, is they placed a time limit. They said that this agreement expires in 2028, in March of 2028. Now, why would it expire in 2028? Because they want it to expire when Trump leaves office. So they actually put that clause in there. So that was an interesting amendment that the EU made. We'll see if the United States agrees to that amendment from the EU. So basically the Commission is saying, okay, we'll remain a hostage to US President Trump as long as he's in office. The minute he leaves, then this entire trade deal is scrapped. Okay. That is so weak. Man, that is weak. So let's talk about Orban. We got an update on the whole Orban, Siarto, calling up Lavrov, giving him the goods, the info, the inside information as to what is happening in Brussels when they have their meetings. I can tell you what they're discussing. It doesn't need Siarto to talk to Lavrov in order for Lavrov to understand what the EU is discussing during their closed-door meetings in EU headquarters. They're talking about Ukraine. They're talking about Zelensky. They're talking about how much they hate Russia. That's it. That's what they're talking about. Mr. Lavrov, I'll tell you what the EU is talking about. Sanctions package number 1, sanctions package number 2, sanctions package number 3, sanctions package number 4, number 20, Russian economy in tatters. Zelensky is cool. Zelensky is great. He's the next Churchill. Putin bad, tatters, 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 tatters. That's a meeting. That's an EU meeting right there. I've summarized the past 4 years of EU meetings. There you have it. So I don't know what secret information Siarto is giving to Lavrov allegedly, but we have an update. We have an update on this story. So the claim originating from the Washington Post is that Siarto, he calls up Lavrov and he gives Lavrov information as to what is being discussed during these closed-door sessions in Brussels. That's the allegation. And now the EU is demanding answers from Orban, and they're now saying that they're going to exclude Hungary in meetings, or they're going to have smaller format meetings where Hungary's not going to be invited. Well, Orban, he is now opening up an investigation into wiretapping. Now let's get Orban's side of the story, because this makes things very interesting, and I think I have an understanding of what's going on now. So Orban found out, and this has been confirmed, by the way. This has been confirmed because the journalist has admitted to this. That's my understanding of the situation. Orban found out that there is a wiretap on his administration. And this wiretap was put in place by a journalist who is aligned with the opposition party, the TISA party, and the information is allegedly being passed on to the EU or to an EU member state. So now Orban has called an investigation to figure out what is going on. An audio file released by Mandinar Pani can be heard telling a source that once the agency he spoke to has a person's phone number, they can extract information about who that number spoke to, and they see who is calling that number or who that number is calling. So this journalist gave the number to an EU country, and then the EU country, they started their wiretap. So let me tell you what is happening here, what I believe is happening here. And all of this was revealed in an audio file. That's my understanding of this. And it's not being denied. Later in the audio file, Pani tells his source that he is a quasi-friend of Anita Orban, a member of the opposition leader Peter Magyar's TISA party, and Magyar's pick to replace Siarto as foreign minister should TISA win next month's parliamentary elections. Pani suggests that he has close links to TISA and would be in a position to recommend who should stay or be removed if Magyar takes power. Pani is editor of V-Square and leads the outlet's Budapest office. V-Square is funded by the U.S. State Department's National Endowment for Democracy, USAID, and 2 EU-financed journalism funds. Earlier this month, V-Square claimed to have uncovered evidence that election fixers with Russia's military intelligence agency, the GRU, were working in Budapest to swing the upcoming elections for Orban. Okay, so that's kind of the backstory to this. So what I think is going on is that the EU got wind of Orban figuring out that he was wiretapped, that his administration was wiretapped. And so what they did is, in order to beat Orban to the punch, they ran the story about Siarto having phone calls with Lavrov. That's what I think is going on here, because Siarto also says that the phone calls are fake news, it's BS. But Orban figured it out. Orban figured out that he was being spied on, and what the EU did, in my opinion, is that they put together this cover story to say that Siarto, he's calling up Lavrov and he's giving him information when in fact the reverse is happening. They're listening in on Orban. and what Orban is saying, or what Siarto is saying. That's what I think is happening. Anyway, that's an update on that story. And we also have reports that the EU is now looking at the AfD. They're now claiming that the AfD is going to be is possibly leaking information to the Kremlin. The EU has a database of meeting notes and documents, and political parties in Europe, they have access to this EU database. And the EU is now afraid that the AfD, which has access to these documents, could be leaking them to the Kremlin. And the reason that I believe they're running with this story is because of the AfD's rise. They see that the AfD continues to gain traction in Germany, continues to win elections, and they're putting together the Kremlin-Russia story. That's what's happening here. Anyway, let's do a clown world. Oh, this has been a long video, and we can wrap up today's video. So today's clown world is another Financial Times article with the title, "It's Always Putin Behind Every EU Migration Crisis. Officials says Russian president is the biggest driver of immigration due to his role in wars over the past decade, says EU commissioner." So the EU is once again blaming Russia and blaming Putin. They're blaming Putin for the EU's migration crisis. Putin, 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 Russia, Russia, Russia. Just blame Russia. The European Union, they're going to cancel the April 15th date where they were going to ban Russian oil, or they were going to approve the proposal to ban Russian oil. That was coming up on April 15th. And we are now getting reports which say that the EU has scrapped that meeting. I wonder why. Blame Russia? But you're going to need Russia. You are going to need Russia, and you're going to need Russia very, very bad. That is coming. That plane trip to Moscow for Ursula and Stunning and Brave is right around the corner. It is coming. Yup. And Putin is waiting. He is waiting with open arms. Ursula, good to see you. Come on in. Yeah, so they're scrapping the whole proposal to ban Russian oil. That's not going to be discussed on April 15th. That's the video, everybody, the Duran.locals.com. We are on Telegram and X and Rumble. We are also on Substack. Go to the Duran shop, pick up some merch. I will see everyone tomorrow. Take care.
Monday has helped us be much more effective and efficient. Maxis Group started out as a small family business, and now throughout the years we've acquired different companies both internationally and locally. Right now we're using Monday.com as a project management tool, so this helps us keep track of everything, and at the same time we're using it as our ticketing system for the IT department. Monday.com has given us the ability to let us know where we are, where we've been, and where we're going to be. So having that information is very, very, very useful.
Why do so many people trust iHerb for their health and wellness products? Simple. We guarantee freshness. Buy direct from manufacturers and ship fast to your doorstep. So, fitness fanatics, stretchaholics, immunity boosters, weight shedders, light sleepers, dog mommies, mommy mommies, even the good doctor here. They all trust iHerb to deliver the freshest, high-quality health and wellness products on earth. iHerb's curated selection of products are quality tested, stored in climate-controlled facilities, and shipped fresh. Seems pretty obvious, but it's
You're on mute, Warren.
Oh, I do apologise. Yeah,
That's
so
all right.
play the other one tomorrow morning because obviously if I play it, it's going to be another hour and a quarter. And obviously I'll take that one to the morning. So for the time being, thank you very much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed it. I'm sorry I couldn't bring you better news, but there is, I know James and I disagree on a lot. That's why I have him on, to be honest, because sometimes he'll say one thing and everything else. I tell you what I did do today. I got a request. Again, I joined this group again when I was asked to. And I found out that they were just regurgitating the same stories that we wrote 2 or 3 days ago, and passing them off as some sort of wonder thing when we'd already broken them, or they were talking absolute nonsense. So in the end, I left. You know that thing I played about being alone if you're intelligent, and it's not their fault. We've got better sources than they have. We've got better people here. If we had a group, it would be so much better than that one because the stuff that they come out with. So you just look at it, you just go, you don't have to put it. There was somebody actually turned and said, signing away with the ever taking part in any activity. Take it easy, everyone. I'll see you.
Thanks very much, Warren. Take care, everybody.
Well, take it easy, everyone.
We'll see you all in the morning.
Will do.
Yeah, we'll see you, Lee. Good luck.